I don't care about the thickness. If it can fit in my pocket, it's thin enough. So today I'll be reacting to iPhone Fold. It didn't come out yet. It's the folding phone for iPhone. They haven't done this yet. And it's been like, what, how many generations does Samsung have of the folding phones? And usually those ones are longer and like narrower, where the outside screen is like tall and very narrow. And this one is supposed to be more like a passport style, which I believe is better. Let's see how it looks
Okay, so in front of me I've got something very exciting. This is a dimensionally accurate model of the upcoming iPhone Fold, also known as the iPhone Ultra. How do I know that?
That looks good to me. But this, it should be a little bit wider though. Maybe it's the angle. Should be a little bit wider.
iPhone Fold, also known as...
Okay, this is the outside screen. People are complaining that it's too small, but you got to understand the aspect ratio is 4:3. And because of that, a 5.5 inch screen at 4:3 has more real estate than a 5.5 inch of 2:1. And it's a little bit wider. Personally, I just believe it's better.
the iPhone Ultra. How do I know that this is accurate? Well, it comes from my friend Sonny Dixon, the same source as all of our previous iPhone models. And those have been spot on every single time, months before their launch. It's literally what case manufacturers use to make their cases ahead of time. So in this video, I'll tell you everything I've discovered and also put it head to head against pretty much every foldable on the market right now, including one comparison that's gonna be really uncomfortable for Apple. So definitely stick around for that. And before that, I have to give a quick shout out to Bitdefender's Premium Security for sponsoring this video with their all-in-one Scam Protection Pro tech. More on that later in the video. But first, I gotta be honest, this thing feels extremely weird in the hand. It's incredibly short, also super wide when open. This is by far the weirdest foldable I've ever held. And the reason why...
Probably gonna be the best. Quote me on that. This is better. Look at that. This is the perfect aspect ratio for a folding phone.
Looks so short and so fat when closed is because when you've got a foldable that doubles in thickness when closed, you've basically got only two design choices. Option one is something like this Apple Find N6 that looks like a normal phone when closed, but the moment you open it, you get this massive squared form factor.
Yeah, this is too square. What the heck?
Which is not that great for video, as video content is usually 16:9.
Oh,
so
look at those massive bars.
Massive black bars. Option number two is exactly what Apple did here, which is a very wide internal screen, which is much better for viewing content.
I mean, it's still gonna have the black bars, as you can see up and down, but it's not as big. This is more reasonable. The other one was way too much.
Because you'll have little to no black bars, but then the external screen, that's the one that gets compromised, becoming very short. And
I won't consider this a compromise, because look, it's wider. Like you have more space for your hands, and this is how I believe the aspect ratios used to be before they started becoming a slab.
Very fat, so to say. The only way to win both scenarios is to have something like the Apple Find N6, but then unfold it 3 times, which is what Samsung and Huawei did with their trifolds. But Apple may never even do a trifold, so this is what we've got.
The trifold is trifling. That's crazy. Open, like to use it now, I gotta go like this and then like this. I have to do 2 actions to open a phone? That's too much. No, they gotta come up with something else.
For now. Now, before I throw it side by side against the competition, let me quickly take a look at the hardware. So on the front, we only have a super tiny earpiece here. We're not gonna have a notch, but we're of course gonna have a front-facing camera, which is said to be a punch hole version. On the right side, we have 2 buttons. You would expect the power and then the volume buttons, right? Well, no, the bottom one is actually the camera control button, which, by the way, does work really well. Like, it's way easier to hold and press with it being so low, as opposed to
going to be using
the iPhone 17 Pro Max, for example, which, as you can see right here, it is way higher. So that is already an upgrade. That's the camera control button. This one right here is actually not the volume button, but it is the power button. And this one doubles as a fingerprint reader because we're not getting any Face ID on the iPhone Ultra. We're set to be getting only Touch ID, just like any other foldable, and that will be built into this power button here. Although I would love to see a softer Face ID like Google's, as that one does actually work really well. But wait, where are the volume buttons then? Well, they're actually right here at the top, which I know is super awkward to reach when you're holding the phone like this. It's like almost impossible. It's very unnatural. However, when you open the phone up, and by the way, this is the hinge which detaches on this dumb unit. But anyways, the volume buttons are way easier to press when you're holding the iPhone Ultra like this, which does make a lot of sense because when you're watching content, you of course want to open the iPhone Ultra up.
How hard would it be to use it when it's closed? Because that matters. But since they're shorter, it should be easier, right? I hope so.
And in that case, the volume buttons are way easier to press. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got the hinge, which, like I said, is detachable on this dumb unit. Of course, on the real unit, that's not going to be the case, or hopefully not. And as you can probably tell, the hinge actually does stick out quite a lot. In fact, if I bring in the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, which has a very similar design on the front, as you can probably tell, the hinge actually sticks out way more on the iPhone compared to the Pixel. Speaking of...
But this is a, well, from what I heard, this is a specific hinge that allows the crease not to be there. So we'll forgive that if that's the case. If there's no crease, who cares how much it sticks out? As long as it's durable and it's creaseless.
Thing sticking out, that's the camera module on the back, which is absolutely a unit. Look at how thick this thing is. And
Big
here
boy.
we've got only two lenses, the main, the ultra wide, and then the microphone, grill, and of course the flash. So now it's time to do some measurements, and I'm quite curious to see how the iPhone Ultra will stack up against the competition. First off, the thickness when closed, it is 11 millimeters thick, which is insanely thick. Then when open, it is 5.5 millimeters thick, again very thick by today's standards. And the camera island itself,
You know, I don't even care about today's standards. If it's, I don't care about the thickness. I don't want you to sacrifice, I don't want Apple to sacrifice the thickness for battery. I don't care about the thickness. If it can fit in my pocket, it's thin enough.
is also very thick at 5.7 millimeters. That's actually thicker than the phone itself. And then the lenses themselves also stick out by about another 2 millimeters. So if I measure the iPhone Ultra fully closed and then also include the camera island, it is a whopping 17.2 or 3 millimeters thick. As for the other dimensions, it is 117.7 millimeters tall, 84.2 millimeters wide when closed, and 168.4 millimeters when wide open. But okay, how does it stack up against other devices? Well, I want to start off by comparing it against the iPhone 17 Pro Max. When closed, the Ultra is shorter by about a third.
Damn, that's much shorter. And it's not that much wider, as you can see. Yeah, that's, I
But
like
they're
it.
also wider, 84.2 millimeters as opposed
All right, let's see. Yeah, it's just slightly wider. Okay, what's the other one? Let me see. 84 millimeter.
to 78.
So, okay, so it's 6 millimeters wider and much shorter with an aspect ratio of probably 4:3, which is, you can get, well, I guess the apps are designed for the slab style of 2:1 aspect ratio or 19:9 aspect ratio. But since Apple is very good at integration, this new aspect ratio, if they take advantage of it, I feel like it's perfect. It's very nice.
On the iPhone. The good news is that typing on a keyboard that's a little wider is gonna feel pretty incredible. The bad
And a lot of people watch their content vertically. Like people watch it like this, where the video is on top and then the comments is on the bottom. Those type of videos will be bigger with a folding phone. While it's folded, it's gonna be bigger when you're watching it like this. But there's gonna be less space for like checking the comments and stuff.
news is that you won't be able to use this one-handed. Like, I'm already struggling to use the 17 Pro Max one-handed. Like, that's, you know, it's really hard to reach. And this thing is even wider. But just take a look at this. If I open it up and then I turn it to vertical orientation, then it actually becomes probably the best device I've used.
Yeah,
typing, right?
I might be using like
Because
this.
Type on, you've got a lot of screen real estate.
This might be
right?
my
And
preferable
in that
use.
case, you're actually getting about a third more screen real
Look at that. They're about the same height, but way wider. Damn.
estate-ish compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max here. Reading articles is gonna feel incredible on this, and I've got a feeling that Apple may even encourage you to use it in this vertical form factor for typing or social media, all of that. I think it's incredible in this form factor. For watching content, it's of course gonna be better than the 17 Pro Max, but actually
that's what makes the iPad mini so popular, is because the way you can use it in a vertical mode. Well, just in general, it's just a good size.
not that much of a difference.
No, cap, because look, you zoomed all the way in with your no. I hate when they do this. You remove watching it on the iPhone has black bars on the left and right. He zoomed in. So this one, if you just watching it in the normal aspect ratio of 16:9, this one is gonna show way more real estate.
Gonna be a night and day difference.
I mean the iPhone Fold.
Bigger.
Right there, that's what I'm saying. Look, that's way bigger. What? Yo, this iPhone Fold is nice. This is like maybe 50% bigger when you're watching content.
Picture slightly compared to the 17 Pro Max. Now let's talk about the thickness. So fully open, it is considerably thinner than the iPhone 17 Pro Max at just 5.5 millimeters thin as opposed to 8.7. But folded down and it becomes incredibly thick, 11 millimeters as opposed to 8.7. The camera island also sticks out quite a lot, but interesting enough, when the Ultra is actually open side by side with the 17 Pro Max, the 17 Pro Max actually has a thicker camera bump from the bottom of the phone, which is probably due to the iPhone 17 Pro Max's telephoto module, which the iPhone Ultra is said to lack. However, if I measure the diameter of the lenses, this is actually 16 millimeters on the Ultra and also 16 millimeters on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which makes me think that Apple is probably using the same main and ultra-wide sensors as on the 17 Pro Max. I really do hope that's the case, especially since this device is rumored to cost more than $2,000.
See, that's gonna be the hardest part, because I like this phone already and I want to get it, but that's a lot of money. I don't know. That's the main draws, over 2,000, and the camera.
Here's where things get weird. If I measure the thickness of the phone when open with the camera modules, it is 11 millimeters, as you can probably see. The 17 Pro Max, however, is quite a bit thicker. It is 13.3 basically. And can you guess which phone is 11 millimeters?
Do you guys care about this? 13 millimeter, 11 millimeter? I don't care about that much. I just care if it fits in my pocket, like a reasonable pants pocket. Not a big ass pants, not a thick pants pocket, but like a reasonable one. That's all that matters to me. So just keep it around 11 millimeters thick with as much battery as possible.
Your steak with a camera island included. Yeah, you're right. That's the iPhone 17. I mean, sure, Apple could have figured a way to compact the camera modules more, similar to what Samsung did with the Z Fold 7's main 200 megapixel sensor. But I think it's way more likely that we'll just get the same main and ultra-wide sensors as on the iPhone 17 and not the Pro. Especially when you consider that the lens diameter on the iPhone 17 is 15.9 millimeters, just 0.1 millimeters smaller than on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So my measurements of 16 millimeters on the iPhone Ultra could just be within the margin of error of my measuring instruments. Something to keep in mind.
Plus, that's
now,
a
since
dummy
we're talking
unit.
about thinness, I gotta show you this one. This is the iPhone Air, and it still shocks me just how thin this thing is at just 5.6 millimeters thin. And yes, that
Is
is
it though?
actually 0.1 millimeters
What about the camera bump?
thicker than the iPhone Ultra. But of course, holding it next to the Ultra when closed, the difference is just night and day. Which brings me to the fun part, comparing the iPhone Ultra against other foldables. And before that, as I mentioned earlier, our sponsor Bitdefender's Premium Security has some super advanced scam protection services. And that matters because the fact is, just all-in-one protection plan. Okay, so let me put it side by side against other foldables now. Starting off with the world's most popular foldable, and that is the Galaxy Z Fold 7. Right off
See,
the
that's
bat,
too
there's a
square. That's too square. Oh.
huge difference in form factor, with the iPhone Ultra being extremely
I'll take the shorter, wider one over that tall, narrow one. Because that tall, narrow one sucks. It sucks. Look, it's too narrow. If you're watching a video on it, there's going to be massive black bars on the left and right side. When you're trying to scroll, the things are condensed down to this. You know what I mean? Like our eyes, like my eyes, I don't know. When I'm looking at something like this, it's hard for me to read. I need it to be this aspect ratio, the eye aspect ratio. And that's why I like the other one.
short and
iPhone.
fat, and the Z Fold 7 being super tall and thin, which kind of reminds me of Asterix and Obelix here. Opening them up, and you'll see that the iPhone Ultra is actually significantly shorter than the Z Fold 7. In fact, if I flip the iPhone vertically,
do it the same way.
More similar. With
Yeah.
the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 being about, I would say maybe about a third wider than the iPhone Ultra. So the Z Fold 7 is definitely better for reading.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's okay like this, but I don't like this square phone. Come on. This is what the... No.
Content, while the iPhone Ultra is of course better for watching content because you've got that wider display. Of course, for one-handed usability, the Z Fold 7 just wins as opposed to the iPhone Ultra. Another big difference is the thickness. The Z Fold 7 is just 8.9 millimeters thin when folded as opposed to 11 millimeters. And the difference is even bigger when you take the camera modules into account, with the iPhone Ultra's camera sticking out way more, despite the iPhone Ultra only having 2 lenses as opposed to 3. Now, opening them up, and the gap does close a tiny bit. We've got 5.5 millimeters on the iPhone Ultra and then 4.2 on the Z Fold 7. So the Z Fold 7 is noticeably thinner here. Now, if I bring in the Oppo Find N6, which in my opinion is by far the best foldable on the market right now, once again, we can see a stark difference. The Oppo does actually have a similar width compared to the iPhone Ultra.
What
However,
do you mean similar width?
it is
This
significantly
thing is much taller. This is literally almost like the Z Fold. It's maybe like a couple millimeters wider. That means it's probably going to be more square opened up.
taller. The Oppo's also way thinner, same dimensions as the Z Fold 7 actually, so 4.2 millimeters when open and then 8.9 when closed. So the Ultra, again, feels very thick compared to the Oppo. And not just that, but it also feels way smaller. So if I open both of them up,
let's see the
you'll
square.
see that the iPhone Ultra actually has a very similar width to the Oppo, but of course the Oppo is about a third taller. Now, the Oppo is also the first foldable with no crease, something that the iPhone Ultra is also rumored to feature, so at least Apple's keeping the pace here, I guess. Plus,
Wow.
Oppo has 3 camera modules as opposed to just 2 on the iPhone, and these camera modules on the Oppo are actually really, really good, especially the telephoto. Yeah, it is really a shame that Apple's not giving us one with the iPhone Ultra, especially considering the price. Which brings me to the Google Pixel 10 Pro Fold, and so far, this is actually the closest foldable to the iPhone Ultra.
Didn't the Pixel had the passport style, which I thought was popular? Why did they go back to this regular ass style?
That's because the Pixel is shorter than all the rest, and it's also wide.
Okay, it's barely shorter. This is. I mean, as a phone, it looks good as a phone, I guess. Yeah, it looks nice. I'll take. If the iPhone Ultra doesn't come out, the one I would pick would be that Pixel.
Than the rest, although not quite as wide as the iPhone Ultra. The front design is also extremely similar, with the iPhone's hinge, like I said before, sticking out noticeably more. Now, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is also very thick at 10.8 millimeters when closed, although that still makes it thinner than the iPhone Ultra. Same goes when you open the phones. The iPhone Ultra is 5.5 and the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is 5.2, so it is a bit thinner here. And its camera module also doesn't stick out nearly as much. So if these measurements are correct, then the iPhone Ultra will be the thickest foldable on the market when it launches. And that's by a pretty big margin, especially with Google said to be launching a thinner Pixel 11 Pro Fold.
it's first generation. You want it to already have thinner like bezels, thinner. You want it to be thinner than all the ones that have like what the Z Fold has like 8 generations. Come on now.
Month or so before Apple's. Now there's one last foldable that I want to put it up against, and that's this guy. The original Google Pixel Fold, named Passport. And as you can tell, out of all the foldables I've got...
The Ultra looks wider than even that. What? From what I remember, I thought the Pixel Fold, the first one, was pretty wide.
Here, this is by far the closest one, because from the front, they're actually very, very similar. Sure, the Pixel Fold is a bit taller, but if we compare the width, it is almost the same. And if I open them up, they're again very, very similar. Almost the same width, and of course the iPhone Fold is just shorter.
It's still not a 4x3.
The Pixel Fold is finally the first foldable that's thicker than the iPhone Ultra at 12.1 millimeters when closed. But you know, this thing came out back in 2023, 3 years ago. The iPhone Ultra is supposed to be a late 2026 foldable, also the most expensive one on the market. So I don't think it being, you know, a bit thinner than a one that came 3 years ago is quite acceptable. Now, before giving you guys my final thoughts, there's one last device I want to compare it against, and that's the iPad mini. Because the whole idea of the iPhone Ultra, from all the leaks and rumors, was that it would basically be like an iPad mini that folds in half. And as you can probably see, that's not really the case, because the iPad mini is noticeably wider and taller. It
has a lot of bezels though. I'm pretty sure the iPhone Fold will have very thin bezels.
iPhone Ultra is just noticeably smaller in every single way. Which brings me to my final thoughts on the iPhone Ultra. And I gotta be honest, I'm actually quite disappointed. You see, not only is the iPhone Ultra considerably thicker than every other foldable on the market, but it's also the smallest one. And it's also rumored to be, by far, the most expensive one. Like, I really hope that these measurements are all wrong, but based on previous years, they're probably not, and they're correct.
I really wish all those measurements are right. Except, I mean, no, even the thickness, if I'm okay with it, if it has a very big battery. That's what matters. The only thing that is bad for me for iPhone Fold is the price. But the main thing about the iPhone Fold is going to be the software, the integration, which is much better than all these Android phones, right? If it can, like, if I can use the iPad apps on the iPhone Fold, like very seamlessly, if everything is good for the new aspect ratio, it's the winner. It's my winner. iPhone Fold. I would buy it if I had the money. Maybe if I get money by then, I might buy it. So we'll see. But I really like the iPhone Fold, the aspect ratio of the iPhone Fold. And I hope it's cheaper than what they say. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Do you agree? Do you like the iPhone Fold, or are you like one of these other guys? Anyways, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.